Good morning, everyone. It is very wonderful to be with you on this Sunday morning, hoping that wherever you may be at this time, this video, this live may find you well and in peace. We understand that we are still isolated at our homes, unable to be physically together with one another, sharing hugs and handshakes. Yet we are pleased to know that we are able to be connected by the ties of our fraternal feelings for each other and the ties of our hearts. This morning, before we get into our main topic, we are going to invite you to follow along the reading of a message contained in the book, Our Daily Bread. This is psychographed by Francisco Cândido Xavier, and it's by the Spirit Emmanuel. And the message is message 100, entitled, Let Us Give Thanks. In everything, give thanks, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Paul, first letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 5, verse 18. The stone secures, the thorn forewarns, bile heals, fire recasts, refuse fertilizes, the storm purifies the atmosphere, suffering redeems, illness warns, sacrifice enriches life, death always renews. Let us learn, therefore, to praise the Lord for the blessings he bestows on us. Good is the heat that modifies. Good is the cold that preserves. The joy that stimulates is the sister of the pain that perfects. Let us pray to heavenly providence for enough light for our eyes to identify the granary of grace in which we find ourselves. It is our inner blindness that causes us to trip over obstacles wherein only divine favor dwells. And especially when we enunciate a worthy desire, let us prepare to welcome the lessons that will help us accomplish it according to the superior purposes that govern our destiny. Let us not be frightened by unforeseen difficulties or painful circumstances. Help from above does not always appear in the form of heavenly delight. It usually appears in the form of a less desirable resource. Let us remember, however, that someone in danger of drowning in the deep waters that covers the abyss can be saved only at the price of extreme measures. So let us give thanks for all the experiences along our evolutionary pathway on our sanctifying search for the divine will in Jesus Christ, our Lord. It is a beautiful message and very appropriate for the times that we face still as we go through this pandemic, realizing that everything that comes our way is an opportunity for growth and realization of the purification of our souls. And with this, I invite you to elevate your thoughts to our Master Jesus, our companion, our friend, our Master, and give thanks for this morning, for being able to be here alive, having yet another day of opportunity to grow, to evolve, to try to untie the knots created in previous existences, in this existences, whether the knots are in the form of forgiveness, of understanding, of tolerance. Let us ask our Master Jesus for strength and understanding of all that is surrounding us so that we can best assimilate the message behind the lesson that comes our way. With this, we give thanks for being connected with you this morning, dear friends who are watching us at home, and we welcome you for being with us this morning as well. Our study today is contained in the Gospel according to Spiritism, and it is called The Good Spiritists. It is a beautiful, beautiful chapter that we find in the Gospel according to Spiritism, which we invite you to read because it's only based on item 4. It's not based on the entire chapter 17, as we see here, but it's so, so, so beautiful. And we hope that after we are done with our presentation this morning, you will feel engaged and maybe even tempted to open the book and further the study a little bit more. So let's get on the chapter. I just wanted to point out that our study today was based not only in the Gospel according to Spiritism, which is available for free online via PDF. This has been authorized by the International Spiritist Council. You can find it later on. I'll type here on the comment area where you may find these books to be downloaded so you can study, so you can pass it along to your friends. But we also want to point out that we utilize the book Psychiatric Disorder and Spirit Obsession, recently released by Leal Publisher, which is a book psychographed by Divaldo Franco and narrated by the spirit author Manoel Philomeno de Miranda. It is very, very important. It is an amazing book filled with content. And if we can probe this book a little bit deeper, it's going to offer us a lot more understanding related to the good spiritist, which is our topic that we are going to be showing here this morning. So on this item 4, Allan Kardec starts out by saying, Spiritism, when well understood, but especially when well felt, inevitably leads to the results listed above, which characterize the true Spiritists as well as the true Christian, for they are one and the same. Spiritism does not create a new morality. It only makes it easier for people to understand and practice the morality of Christ by providing an unshakable and enlightened faith to those who doubt or who waver. Of course, one may ask what items that has been listed above, what result has been listed above. So basically, he's talking about item 3. Item 4 is the recipe that will allow us to somehow arrive at item 3, which is the moral person. Here's another invitation for you to read. Listed above has to do with item 3 in the moral person, in which Allan Kardec offers us the recipe for good conduct or good living. And I just wanted to bring here what some of the items may be. It's not entirely just this. There is a lot more that Allan Kardec offers us as the characteristic of the moral person. Here we see the moral person is the one who practices the law of justice, love, and charity in its greatest purity. Question their conscience about their actions. They ask themselves if they have violated the law of justice, love, and charity. They have faith in God and in God's goodness, justice, and wisdom. They have faith in the future. These are persons imbued with the sentiment of charity and love for their neighbor, to do good for its own sake without expecting anything in return. Their first impulse is to think of others before thinking of themselves, and to attend to the interest of others before their own. And then finally, one more example, moral persons are kind. Oops, let me see if I got there. Yep, moral persons are kind, humane, and benevolent towards all, regardless of race, creed, because they regard they regard all people as their brothers and their sisters. Of course, when we read the characteristics of the moral person, one may feel inclined to say, that is an impossible goal. There is no way I'm there yet, not in this lifetime. And it's very normal that we should feel this way, because these characteristics are talking about the type of progress that we wish to attain contained here. It's as if to say, here's what it needs be in order for you to ascend to the higher spheres of life. And of course, Allan Kardec then comes to say that in order to arrive at these qualities, it is not enough that we understand the content found in Spiritism, but rather it is important that we feel it and feel it well, that we assimilate it not only intellectually, but also by the means of our own hearts and our souls. So, this type of attitude of having to be, of being able to feel it and not only know it, actually is what is going to inevitably lead us to become the moral person. The one explained here by Allan Kardec, the list is actually a little bit longer. And although some of us may feel that this is unattainable, that this is really hard to get to, it is offering us a view, a pathway, a compass, if you will, that will lead us to try to achieve these type of characteristics, because after all, we have reincarnated to be able to attain new qualities, new virtues. We are here, yes, to be able to work, to have our family, to have fun, to have a good life. Yet we can't no longer ignore the fact that we have reincarnated to be able to make the most out of this lifetime, that we are being given opportunities to rise above matter, to rise above everything that perhaps has kept us stagnant, stationary, or even behind in our spiritual progress. So, first, with the moral person, Allan Kardec provides us with the goal, the objective, and in this immense list offers us, men and women alike, the road, the recipe for the road of inner enlightenment, for an opportunity to reflect upon oneself. Basically, this is what it's about. It is to reflect upon oneself. Am I the person who have faith in God? What does that entail? What does faith in God entail? Am I someone who have faith in the future? Because as spiritists, understanding that we are immortal, that the things that we are going through are all temporary, which is why we open this beautiful message from the book Our Daily Bread, which is called Let Us Give Thanks. It's message 100. And we find that everything that happens to us has a purpose. It speaks directly to what we need as far as being equipped, strengthened in our spiritual progress is concerned. So first, he offers us the north. It offers us the goal and the objective. He provides us with the information that so that properly equipped in this existence, we are able to march on with solid ground beneath our feet, symbolically speaking, feeling encouraged and even more feeling empowered within ourselves. It is in the very first paragraph of this chapter here that Kardec states that it's not something that can only be understood, but well felt. So again, here they're talking about the fact that it is not enough to understand. We need to assimilate it through the ties of our hearts. And perhaps this is what led the Spirit of Truth to state in 1860 this phrase right here: Spiritists, love one another. This is the first teaching, and educate yourselves. This is the second. It is a very profound phrase that we have here. A clear lesson that talks about the need to adjust and balance both intellect and heart, that one can't go without the other. And basically, this is what our study has to do with this morning. One very clear and particular example of what we are trying to address here today can be found in the Spiritist Review of 1861. Here is another book for your appreciation. Can also be found in the website at the United States Spiritist Federation. It's available for purchase. I'm sure they have it on Amazon, but also it's available on Kardecpedia, kardecpedia.com. If you click on the little flag for English-speaking nations, you're going to find this book also available for download and study. This is a very important material that we have that Allan Kardec brought us. A lot of people think that Allan Kardec's contribution is only based on 5 books, and it is not. It is a lot more, and we only have to gain from this understanding. So here it is. The difference between only knowing and only feeling is this example that we found in the Spiritist Review of 1861. As some of you may know, Allan Kardec, at the beginning, when Spiritism came about, it was released with the Spiritist book in 1857. Here we're talking about an example in 1861. So a few years only, very short few years, in which at the time that he released the book up until now, Allan Kardec was actually traveling quite a lot. Actually, he traveled quite a lot throughout the time of propagating Spiritism. Not only by the means of dissemination of the books was he completely selfless dedicated, but he would actually visit the nucleuses of study. At that time, they weren't called Spiritist centers. They were called Nucleus for Spiritist Studies. And he would visit the groups that were just starting out or who had already established to be able to not only learn from them, here is the quality of humility from Allan Kardec, but also to be able to see if he could offer any other type of assistance. So Allan Kardec, extremely present figure in the dissemination of Spiritism, visiting many centers, he come on to this place called St. Just. And here is where he mentions in the Spiritist Review of 1861, specifically the month of October, an example that we are about to illustrate right here. After he mentioned having visited the special location in St. Just, he writes in the Spiritist Review the following. The speech below was addressed to us during our visit with the St. Just group. We report on it not to satisfy a foolish and childish vanity, but as a testimony of the feelings that dominated in workshops penetrated by Spiritism, and also because we knew it would please those who wanted to give us demonstrations of sympathy. So that, St. Just was about 30 miles away from Lyon, where Allan Kardec lived with Amélie Boudet, his lovely wife. So, just to consider here, it was about maybe an hour and so away. And here in the Spiritist Review, he presents us the speech that was addressed to him when they arrived there, and how the friends were able to host this gathering for Allan Kardec. So here's what they said. Mr. Allan Kardec, disciple of Jesus, interpreter of the Spirit of Truth, you are our brother in God. We beg you, our dear Master, to probe deep into our hearts so that you can feel our sympathy towards you. We are poor workers without artifices. A thick curtain was cast upon us since our childhood to suppress our intelligence. But you, dear Master, the will of the Almighty, you tear that curtain off. Thank you, Mr. Allan Kardec, 1,000 times. Thank you in the name of the St. Just group for being among us, simple workers and still too imperfect in matters of Spiritism. Your presence brings us great joy amidst our tribulations that are significant at this moment of commercial crisis. You bring us the healing balm, which is called hope, and that appeases hatred and rekindles love and charity in one's hearts. We will do our best, dear Master, to follow your advice and those of the superior spirits that have kindly helped and instructed us, so that all of us can become true and good Spiritists. We're talking about what Allan Kardec stated as simple blue-collar workers, men and women, simple in their ideals, uneducated, as if to compare them before the PhDs or the masterminds of their time, And these are people that were so touched to the very core by Spiritism that although they were not intellectually evolved or did not feel that they could embrace the Spiritist body of knowledge and its wholesomeness, intellectually speaking, they were allowed to talk about it, how it had touched them in their heart. And so Allan Kardec wrote the following. He said, someone in Lyon said, Spiritism penetrates the working class through reason. Wouldn't it be better to have it done through the heart? That person certainly does not know the workers. It would be desirable to find so much heart in everyone. This is so beautiful, right? He continues, if such a language is not inspired by the heart, if the heart means nothing to the one who finds strength in Spiritism to fight bad inclinations, to fight with resignation against misery, to subdue their grudges and animosities, to share a slice of bread with someone who is even unhappier, we must confess that we don't know where the heart is. This is very profound. This is so beautiful. This is what Allan Kardec talked about and meant when he said that Spiritism, when not only understood but well felt, actually leads inevitably to the condition of the moral person. The person who is able to assimilate a message, not only intellectually, but also and especially through the heart, are those that have raised the bar a little higher in their spiritual evolution. Of course, dear friends, there are many other philosophies or religions that people are embracing where they are assimilating it by the mind and heart. But this is a Spiritist talk, and we are talking about the good Spiritists. This is about the body of knowledge that we have embraced for our own existence. And here we can start understanding why, symbolically speaking, Spiritism is Jesus returning to the world, inviting us to the individual growth through constructive and incessant work. Because over 2,000 years ago, when Jesus was among us, he called men, simple men, fishermen, to follow him. He was not interested in calling the doctors of the law or even great philosophers to try to assimilate the good news. No, he called men who were able to assimilate his message and also feel it, to be able to be the ones who would actually assist them in the propagation of the good. One of the greatest examples of this transformation, of assimilating it, not only intellectually, but also through the means of the heart, is contained in the presence of Paul. Saul of Tarsus, intellect. Paul of Tarsus, intellect and heart. Being able to understand the message, feel it, and live it. Eventually live it. Making an effort, striving to be able to live with sentiments the teachings of our Master Jesus. In modern days, it is not a coincidence that Spiritism, with Allan Kardec stating, just like he wrote in this lesson, and also Benevolent Spirit calling us to talk about understanding the reason behind allowing our sentiments to take place. Here is one of the lessons that we find. Let's go forward. Love summarizes Jesus' doctrine in its entirety because it is this sentiment par excellence. And sentiments are instincts raised to the height of degree of progress accomplished. This is what we are talking about here. This is a very beautiful phrase and message that we find in the book, also the Gospel according to Spiritism. Love. This sentiment par excellence. Sentiments are instincts raised to the height of degree of progress accomplished. This is really important for us to understand and assimilate. Divaldo Franco narrates a beautiful example in one of his lectures. I'm sure that if you participated in our annual event held by the Spiritists Federation of Florida, you might have heard it. And if you haven't, I'll share here with you and it will be news to you. But he talks about the fact that one day he was at the Spiritist Center that he runs in within the Mansion of the Way. And if you've been there, if you haven't, the podium is actually not a podium. It's kind of like a raised floor or a raised space in which he sits there with those who are assisting him with the meeting. And it's pretty high. And down below, you have all of the 800 to 1,000 seats. It's a huge place. And then there are also seats on the top part of the Spiritist Center. So it's huge. Maybe it accommodates about 1,200, 1,300 people. But he talks about the fact that when he was sitting there and he was giving a public lecture, he noticed with his mediumistic ability, a woman who was sitting in the very middle of the salon, of the space, of the Spiritist Center. And from her radiated this immense light. She had so much light shooting up that it actually distracted Divaldo during his talk. A lot of people, he's able to see and feel how people are actually reacting to what he was saying. But it seemed as if she was immersed in so much light, as if she was drinking in everything that he was saying, and that message was going in and radiating it out in the form of light. When he approached her at the end of the meeting, he realized that it was a extremely poor woman. Perhaps she had not even reached a first grade type of education. She was not able to read. She was illiterate. Her verbal abilities were actually also not very much evolved, but she was pure love and light. He talked about her qualities being so profound that he invited her to be a participant in his mediumistic meetings because of what she had to offer. This is we're talking about sentiments and intellect. So when we talk about the two wings that we are to develop so that we can soar high, so we can ascend to the highest spheres, this is what we're talking about. Yes, we are to develop the intellect, but we are also to develop the moral. And we are also to allow the potentialities of our soul, which is the sentiments that are still germinating, to fully blossom within our hearts. As Allan Kardec continues here, he says, thus it is an exceptional intelligence needed to understand it, to understand Spiritism. No, since one sees individuals with notable capacities who do not comprehend it, while average minds, even young people who have barely left adolescence, understand it in its most delicate nuances with admirable precisions. He continues, this derives from the fact that the somewhat material aspect of the spirit science requires only eyes that can observe, whereas the essential aspect requires a certain degree of sensibility, which one might call maturity of the moral sense, regardless of age and level of education, because it is particularly inherent to the development of the incarnate spirit. So, moral maturity, the maturity of the moral senses. Paul of Tarsus is indeed one of the examples that we can find. Why not be the example for ourselves in the sense of developing our moral sense, our mature moral sense? And so Allan Kardec talks about the fact that there are those who, once they are aware of the need to develop this moral sense, they recoil at this obligation of reforming themselves, of modifying that which they do not like, that which is not in accordance with the divine laws. Some remain stationary, not really preoccupied with their future existence, with their future life, or otherwise they reserve their sympathies for those who share in their weaknesses and their prejudices as well. We are at a moment of our lives right now when we see the entire globe being shaken by a pandemic where we can no longer recoil before an obligation or remain stationary. There is only one way to go, and that is forward, as to not waste a precious opportunity that has been given to us. He continues, those who may rightfully be regarded as true and sincere spiritists are at a higher degree of moral evolvement. Their spirit dominant, dominates matter more completely, thus giving them a clearer perception of the future. The principles of the doctrine makes fibers vibrate within them that remain dormant in the former. In short, their heartstrings are touched, therefore, by their faith is unshakable. Some are like the musician who is moved by certain chords when others can hear only sounds. This also is truly beautiful. Let's see what he said again. He said, the principles of the doctrine makes their fibers within vibrate that remain dormant in the former. So here's an example. If you enjoy classical music, if you love classical music, and you feel that when you put it on, it actually makes you elevate above yourself and you become touched, emotional by it, for others, it's just noise. It's annoying. They rather listen to perhaps a what do you call a rap music. It's completely different. This is what we're talking about here. Not to say that other music are not good. I'm just using classical because I love classical music, and it does touch me differently perhaps than it might touch someone else. This is the same with Spiritism. Here they're making a comparison of the one who is actually able to be touched by it, whose sensibility is actually heightened, where they're able to no longer wish to see the phenomena of spirit materialization or spirit communication to be touched by Spiritism. No, that's not needed anymore. Its message is the one factor that touches the true Spiritists to the core, that makes them realize that before them, they have this third revelation that is here available to assist him or her in their own spiritual ascendancy. Because Allan Kardec talked about Spiritism here and Christianity being one of the same, of course, in Spiritism we learn that Jesus is our model and guide for humanity. And yes, assimilating the message as Christians, we will be able to partake in this world for the betterment of ourselves, for the betterment, consequently, of our world. This is what Allan Kardec to say further. While the former are content with their limited horizon, pardon me, the latter understand that there is something better. They make they make the effort to free themselves, and they always reach their goal if they maintain a firm will. I apologize if there are any technical glitches on your side. My screen keeps going on and off, and I keep losing my place here. So let's read that again so as to not become confused. While the former are content with their limited horizon, the latter understand that there is something better. They make the effort to free themselves, and they always reach their goal if they maintain a firm will. So it's about personal choice, really. We can see here that although we may be in the condition of between the one who fluctuates between one and the other, it's all a matter of personal choice. Sometimes pain is going to be that one factor that eventually will lead someone to have the belief, the feeling, the sentiment within that Spiritism can provide. Let's say someone who's just lost a loved one. They haven't lost, no one is lost. They're just in the spirit plane. And Spiritism provides this unshakable faith about this information because it's based on reason. It's based on logic. So yes, we are no longer aiming, wander aimlessly in life, unknowing or being told what to believe. This is why the Spiritist philosophy, the Spiritist doctrine came about with a book based on questions and answers, so that we have to basically have something that is going to offer us with a reason, something that is going to allow us a broader understanding on what is before us. We wanted to go towards the end of our meeting with a message from Dr. Bezerra de Menezes. He is a spirit who has been around, providing us with a lot of faith, a lot of content, not only on the messages that he offers, but also through the Psychophony of Divaldo Franco, but also in the writings. And this one specific message is contained in the book that we mentioned at the beginning, the Psychiatric Disorder and Spirit Obsession, that has just been released last week, and it's available. It's on Amazon, it's on several places. But he starts out saying this to Spiritists today. Similar to what happened in the past when Jesus came, in a situation equivalent to the one we are living, a lot of overuse of power, poverty, a lot of conflict, a lot of pain, a lot of despair. Basically, the message that he's addressing of what was happening at the time of Jesus is happening today. So let's start again. Similar to what happened in the past when Jesus came, in a situation equivalent to the one we are living, we received the Spiritist teachings that set forth the revolution of love, the only one possessing the tools that promote happiness. Allan Kardec's message is spreading, offering hope and calling for peace, calling for fraternity, calling for mutual help and charity. How have we, the Spiritists, whether incarnate or discarnated, conducted ourselves in view of such great challenges? This is a good question to ask ourselves right now. At the time of pandemic, at the time that we are living under, how have we, Spiritists, conducted ourselves in view of the great challenges that we see happening in the world right now? Have we understood it? Have we understood that our contribution of love is highly significant in the midst of so much hate? While we criticize the leaders and violent individuals who take by force what they want, do we by chance act differently, with respect, with dignity, as the Master has taught us? Pause from his message. Have we silenced the hatred that is going around in social media? I'm not talking about being ignorant, about not being informed, but we're talking about sentiments. Sometimes one of the ways that we react is actually what is going to give even more power to the dissemination of hatred, of intolerance, to this idea that, yes, there is a lot of injustice, but how are we as Spiritists conducting ourselves when we see a moment of despair? How have we promoted Spiritism in social media? Are we promoting a message that offers hope, that dignifies, that enlightens, that offers a second view for the person who is in despair? Are we the ones who are utilizing the power of the Spirit contained in technology today to promote something that is wholesome and that is good, or not? He's talking about our contribution of love, contribution of love that is highly, highly significant in the middle of so much hate. While marveling at the revelations of immortality and reincarnation, has knowledge of the Spiritist principles made a difference in our behavior? Here's another question. While we are completely profoundly impacted by the message, the information contained in the Spiritist principles, revelation of immortality, revelation of reincarnation, revelations of the divine laws, have all of that made a difference in our behavior? This is something to consider, that we should be asking ourselves. Have we understood that indeed we can change the world, as did the martyrs of faith in the past, and that the downtrodden that found Jesus and followed him, altering the course of history? Here we are at a moment of transition where our planet is changing. And some of you may be thinking, how am I to change the world? How can I make a difference alone? Sometimes feeling so helpless, sometimes feeling like we are powerless to do something. But collectively, we can do a lot. This perhaps is a moment where we can remember what Francis of Assisi said about preaching the gospel, but using words only when necessary. So it has to do with conduct and behavior yet again. And when somebody sees someone reacting differently, it is really something that touches us. I saw a video the other day about two teens getting into an altercation at school, and one of them wanting to fight, and the other wishing not to fight, and how the kids around them were all saying, fight, 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 fight. But the one who was peaceful was so powerful in his stance that it actually touched the other, who decided not to give in. And then all of a sudden, one of the peers who were standing there watching what was happening stepped forward and started talking about the need to be peaceful, to stop the fight, to stop promoting hatred in school. And all of a sudden, the fight died out. It's what Dr. Bezerra de Menezes is going to call the butterfly effect. Let's continue before we get to that part. He said, Spiritism, like Christianity, is the doctrine of a righteous, conscious, and edifying conduct. In joining its ranks, there is no way to deny its sublime contents, but by acts that do not correspond to its established objectives. Because we are few, or because we lack privileges of power, fortune, or social position, it does not constitute an impediment to carry out the task of advancing human dignity. Here is where he talks about the effect of the butterfly wings. He says, the flappings of the wings of a butterfly in the east influences the weather in the west, is a statement based on the concept and logic and the science that studies such phenomena. Accordingly, any emitted vibration will radiate and become a factor of inevitable effect, for it is as far as it can reach. So, emitted vibrations of love will reach a certain place that we can even understand it collectively. Our mental waves has an impact on the mental waves of others who are capturing it and throwing it out as well. If we emit vibrations of hatred and intolerance, we are pretty much contributing to the mess and the agitation that is taking place in the world right now. Whereas the Spiritist, who is a Christian, because one is the same as the other, is already aware of these realities. And this is what offers a moment of understanding of conduct change, of change of behavior. In the time of pandemic, we cannot simply dodge the duty of cooperation in favor of a healthy and dignified world, utilizing the resources that we have at hand. What are the resources that we have at hand? Well, the other day I was considering whether our Spiritist Center equipped the attendees with all they needed in order to seek shelter during a moment of isolation and the pandemic. And we are isolated at home, yet we are actually having a view of the world because we are connected in the internet, because we are connected with others during the lives, the podcast, the media, news, everything that we have. So he finishes by saying, This endeavor starts with your own spiritist conduct. I want to make this bigger here. Sorry. This endeavor starts with your own spiritist conduct. It's changing by itself, which then progresses toward family, the workplace, the social group, and your spiritist center. If conviction of the truth does not enable the spirit's self-interest, self-control, respect for neighbor, personal renunciation, the humility to recognize its own mistakes, what worth can it have? Defeat the evil that might perhaps still remain in your hearts, making room for the reign of the good. Spiritism, well understood, but most importantly, well felt, is what's inevitably going to lead us towards the road of the good person, the moral person. And Allan Kardec finished this chapter, this item in this chapter, by stating the following. Spiritists, the true spiritists, are recognized by their moral transformation and the efforts they make to overcome their negative inclinations. Here's the final recipe that we are giving here. We will be recognized as good and true spiritists, yes, by the moral changes, but also, and most importantly, by the efforts that we make in order to reach that goal and that objective. My friends, we chose this chapter today because at the time of pandemic where we are isolated, we are being given an extreme important moment for self-reflection and self-analysis in a positive way so that we can seek means to modify our behavior if it's not yet aligned with the principles bestowed, the Spiritist principles that we find that assist us in ascend higher and higher. My suggestion is that we keep seeking in the noble books that we have before us, the information that is contained that is going to, yes, be assimilated intellectually, but most importantly, that we try to assimilate it by the heart and the soul, so that, yes, we can be like the simple blue-collar workers in 1861 who were able to praise Allan Kardec for being able to remove the heavy curtain, unveiling before them a beautiful and bright future that has to do with the condition of the immortal spirit of our souls. With that, I thank you for your attention, and I invite you to do our final prayer with us at this moment, elevating our thoughts and our minds to our Master Jesus and our Father above, for equipping us with that which would give us an opportunity in this existence to partake in the betterment of our own selves, of our inner and outer world. We ask you, dear Father, to continue blessing us, to continue sending your messengers of love to encourage us as we keep going on our own road towards perfection. We ask that we always feel strengthened so that if our brother or sister before us is in need of a helping hand, we are able to give it to them, bring them up when they fall, and hopefully count on them, and also be brought up should we be the ones who fall along the way. We know we have our Master Jesus, our Good Shepherd, looking out for us and protecting us. Yet we know that without the presence of benevolent spirits who are with us at all moments, we would be nearly impossible to reach there faster than we can. We are very grateful for the Spiritist body of knowledge that has been assisting us and helping us along the way, answering the questions of our soul deep down inside. And we ask that you keep blessing our Spiritist center and attendees, keeping all of us safe, understanding that the time of pandemic will pass, and once it does, we ask you, dear Jesus, to help us so that we feel strengthened and empowered, ready for the new challenges of the new era of the new day. With this, dear friends, I thank you for your attention. I just wanted to point out to you guys that we have been showing here in every live this QR code that you see on your screen. We actually this month are turning in our physical space. Our lease is up at that space. And while the pandemic is going around, we're going to be looking for a new location that is going to be able to accommodate us when we are able to physically be present. So the QR code is here to make it easy for you if you're able to make a donation to our Spiritist Center. We have not had hardly any income since we closed in the middle of March. We are already in August. Crazy as it may seem, a lot of our contribution comes from selling the books and selling the food at the center, and we have not had any of that. And the contribution of donations also have gone way down. So if you can, please make a donation. Any amount is fine. And if you can't make a financial contribution, contribute by sharing that we have many activities happening at our Spiritist Center, so that others can also become engaged and find the spiritual assistance they need to continue on their journey. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful, wonderful week.